Hollow Knight is one of the most popular indie games, and its long-awaited sequel, Silksong, finally released. As celebration, I've decided to play Hollow Knight again and learn the any % speedrun category in only 3 days. The last time I've played Hollow Knight was in September 2019. That was 6 years ago. You can only imagine how hard this challenge is gonna turn out. 3 days are not a lot of time to learn an entire speedrun category. The goal of this challenge is to see if I can remember the route of the any % category and get a somewhat decent time. It's not about getting a world record. In only 3 days, this is definitely impossible, but I enjoy the learning experience and want to challenge myself. And maybe at the end of the video, you've learned how to speedrun the Hollow Knight yourself or find motivation in speedrunning this or other games as well. Let's start with day 1. Day 1 is the most important day, because I had to make a ton of decisions that will affect the entire challenge. Which category do I want to run? Do I need a specific patch version to run the category? On which platform do I want to run the category? How do I set up my controls properly? And many more questions. First of all, I opened up my browser to visit speedrun.com and search for Hollow Knight. To my surprise, this game has a ton of categories, but the answer to my question was already staring at my face. It was the any % no major glitches category. Not only did I choose this category because it was the most popular one, but looking at the leaderboards, it seemed also like a relatively quick speedrun. As the time of this recording, the world record stands at only 30 minutes and 49 seconds. When choosing a category for the 3-day challenge, I want to go for a speedrun which is somewhere between 20 minutes to 1.5 hours. If the speedrun is 4 hours long, good luck completing the challenge in 3 days. And if the speedrun is only 5 minutes long, then the chance is highly likely that the game has some groundbreaking glitches which you have to learn over and over again, which is not really that exciting for me, to be honest. That's why I picked any % no major glitches. On the same page you can also see the platform most runners are running on, which is on PC. And the patch is 1.2.2.1. Downgrading to the patch for Hollow Knight was super easy. I just had to right click on the game in Steam, click Properties, Betas, and there was already an option to downgrade to my desired patch. I knew this is either gonna be a huge hassle or a piece of cake, and I'm glad it was the latter. At this point, we've answered the following questions: the category, the platform, and the patch. The only thing missing were the controls, and my controller of choice was the Hard to 42 G16 pad. But why choose a level-less controller? For this, we have to look at the game itself. When moving around in Hollow Knight, the directions you can choose to walk and attack are left, right, up and down. There are no inputs in a 360-degree angle. There is also no option to walk or run based on your stick's sensitivity. When there are a maximum of 8 directions and the control stick position doesn't affect your running speed, then my preferred choice is usually a level-less controller. Now I decided the category, the platform, the patch and the controls. I think it is time for the main event, learning the actual speedrun. Every speedrun category comes with different tabs. 2 of the most important tabs are guides and resources. In resources you often find files for your life splits, Excel sheets and so on. Meanwhile in guides you can find tutorials for your speedrun category. I was looking at Fireborn's YouTube guides and to my surprise, the entire guide seemed to be a very in-depth and detailed guide, which in total was an over 5-hour long playlist split into several videos. Over 6 hours long if you also count the installation guide. I didn't watch Fireborn's guides, but I do believe that the videos are very well made. If I wasn't running on a time limit, I would have probably watched it, but I only had 3 days to practice and the guides alone would have cost me an entire day, if not more. So I had to settle for a shorter guide. And my Twitch chat suggested another creator called Masker. Masker is a 14-minute Hollow Knight any % guide. I watched the video one time from the beginning until the very end, and it basically goes over the basic route. The video doesn't go in depth over how to do every boss fight perfectly or how to properly do certain speedrunning techniques, but it shows you exactly where you have to go if you want to learn the category. In general, I had the video open all the time during day 1, and if there were specific techniques I had to learn like shade skip, I just opened up a different tutorial and learned from that. After watching the video one time, I was finally ready to boot up the game and practice. The game starts with our hero falling from the sky. For this run we have the following main objectives: acquire Vengeful Spirit, defeat Hornet and get the Morphwing Cloak, get the Mantis Claw in the Mantis Village, acquire the Dream Nail to kill the 3 Dreamers and absorb them, go to City of Tears and absorb Lurien the Watcher, the first Dreamer, get Crystal Heart in Crystal Peak, go to Fork Canyon and absorb Monomon the Teacher, the second Dreamer, go to Deep Nest and absorb Hera the Beast, the third and last Dreamer, and defeat Hollow Knight to end the game. First, we need to make our way to Dirtmouth, which doesn't take too long, and from there we head over to Forgotten Crossroads. One of the first important stops is the Aspid Arena, or how I called it, the Bug Arena. Even though everything is full of bugs anyway. But I gave it a name because it is a major waypoint. In the Aspid Arena, we fight the Aspid Hunter to open up the way and head over to the False Knight to fight it. After the first phase, it has a temper tantrum, and meanwhile you can break the wall on the left side to head out. Now we're making our way to the Snail Shaman to gather the Vengeful Spirit, a powerful spell which we need to progress through the run. We complete the maze and sit on the bench, which is very important. This bench is used for a few save and quits later in the run. When you save and quit and reload the game, you will start at the last bench you rested on, or the last hard save. Benches are everywhere in this game. If you speedrun, make sure to only bench when it is either necessary or doesn't affect the run. I did it accidentally and I show you why this is bad later. Now we're making our way to Green Path. For this we have to defeat the Elder Baldur with our spell we just collected. Green Path is also the first time we meet Hornet, and she greets us from a high ground. To get up here, we need to manipulate this enemy to be right next to the exit. We jump on it, bounce off of it with our nail, and we just skipped a lot of stuff. On the way to Hornet, we have to quickly dispose of the Moss Knight. Otherwise we can't progress. And we defeat the Vengefly King for some extra money, and after that we are fighting Hornet. This fight is relatively simple, but I would recommend taking your time in the beginning. As soon as we've defeated Hornet, we have access to the Morphwing Cloak, which allows us to dash. Usually at this point you would save and quit to the bench where we got the Vengeful Spirit. But I made a stupid mistake, so I went all the way back to that bench and continued my route from there. From the bench, we make our way to the Aspid Arena again. But this time we choose the bottom left way, which leads us to Fungal Wastes. Our objective here is to get to the Mantis Village, where we get the Mantis Claw. Upon arriving in Mantis Village, we hit the lever to open the gate at the top and collect the Mantis Claw, which allows us to jump off walls. Usually at this point we save and quit, but guess who decided to use another bench and had to backtrack? So I made my way back to the bench again, the Snail Shaman looked at me funny.
You just blowing from Stupid Town?
And I continued from there. We make our way to the Aspid Arena again and choose the bottom right path. We move almost the exact way as to the False Knight, but instead of fighting the False Knight, we go to the Stag Station and pay for it. Then we move down again and head over to the bottom right where Gru's mother is. We finish off Gru's mother, go all the way to the right, use the bench this time, and enter the building to buy the Shaman Stone from Zalubra. The Shaman Stone is important because it powers up our spells. Now we go to the left, enter this building and talk to Sly. Sly is important because later he will sell us an item in Dirtmouth. And now it is time for another skip, the Shade Skip. For this we need to die at a specific spot in the same area to make our shade appear. Because we benched here, we respawn here as well. With our current nail and health level, the shade will always die in 2 hits. We attack the shade one time, head over to the right wall, bounce off of it, dash to the shade and attack it with our nail. Dash against this tiny spot, wall jump off of it and dash again to the right. This way we not only skip a ton of stuff, but we also got our shade back. Now we need to gain our next ability, the Dream Nail. This allows you to enter the dream realm of the 3 dreamers, which is essential to beating the game. After gaining this ability, we head to our next destination, the City of Tears. We have a few important things to do here, so let's break it down. In the first room, we need to take this elevator and collect an item to sell later. Next, we're heading over to a room full of rich bugs and kill them for money. There's also a secret path that leads to the Golden Husk. Upon defeating it, we gain a ton of money. After that, we head to the left and go up the Watcher's Tower. We take the elevator up and notice that we cannot get up this spot. However, thankfully there's a rock in the way and we can just bounce off the rock with our nail and wall jump our way up. Upon climbing further up, we see an area which is completely dark. Somewhere here around is a lever that we have to hit through the ceiling to open the door. However, before going through the door, I went west and did a bit of benching, because the next part is gonna be hard. We have to fight the Watcher Knight. Usually you have to fight 6 of these knights. However, there's a little chandelier that you can drop on one of them to make the fight a bit faster and easier. This fight took me about 20 minutes, because I died several times. Okay, yeah, this will take a little bit. This is probably one of the hardest fights in the speedrun, and I really recommend practicing it a ton. Once I've defeated the Watcher Knight, I made my way further up and collected some money and another item on the way. Then we take the elevator up, where we meet our first dreamer, we use our dream nail, enter the dreams, and absorb them. After this, we go all the way down the tower again and head west where we talk to Lem. After talking to Lem, we go further to the west, go up this elevator, and we do a bit of platforming to collect another item. Now from up there, we head to the east where we meet Lem again and sell him all of our stuff. At this point, we want to have at least about 2200 geo, preferably even more. Now we go down the elevator and head all the way back to the east and go to the stack station. We pay 300 geo for the stack station and go back to Dirtmouth. We enter this building, talk to Sly and buy the lantern for 1800 geo. And now we bench again really quickly, because we need it for another save and quit. Then we go back to the stack station and move straight to Crossroads. If you remember, we paid for the station right before performing the shade skip. That's why it was so important. And now we make our way to Crystal Peak, where we have to spend another 50 geo to enter the area. Crystal Peak is a lot of platforming and avoiding obstacles instead of brute forcing your way through it. There are laser beams and stuff, so you always have to watch out. At the end of Crystal Peak is our next ability, which is the Crystal Heart. With the Crystal Heart, you can fly forward horizontally until you collide with an obstacle. Now that we've collected Crystal Heart, we save and quit, reload the game, and we are back at Dirtmouth. We go back down to Crossroads, but instead of going to the Acid Arena, we go west until we find this pool of acid. We have to perform another trick here called the acid skip. My method for doing it in the beginning was just slowly walking up to this wall, using Crystal Heart, and then I bopped my head to a rhythm and jumped. I know it sounds kinda stupid, but it helped me a ton. After this we go all the way down and head west until we arrive at this building. In here waits another boss, Umu. This boss gave me so much trouble. I died multiple times and every single attempt took ages to complete. Okay, I'm done. You're getting guided now. It took me about 40 minutes to defeat Umu with the little damage I dealt. After defeating Umu, we head to our next dreamer, absorb it, and 2 out of 3 dreamers are done. Upon exiting the building, we go to the left, we go down and right to enter Queen Station. Go more to the right until we are at Fungal Wastes. From here on out we want to move more in the southwest direction until we get to this spot. We Crystal Heart our way over to the left, slash the wall open and step into this area. We have to walk past this spot one time and go back again until it breaks and we enter Deep Nest. This area is a huge pain in the ass in the beginning, and it's not because of the enemies. This area can get really confusing. First you have to find your way out between all these centipedes until you fall down and hit the water. If you're scared, hit the bench. If you're GigaChat, just move forward. I was benching like a soy boy. You head to the west and navigate your way out of this area until you arrive at the distant village. My general rule of thumb in the beginning was, if I can move up, I go up, and the general direction is always going west until I arrive at the distant village. Here you want to enter this building and rest on the bench where you get captured by sus bugs. You find yourself covered in webs and slash your way through it. Now you go all the way up until you find the last dreamer. You enter their dreams, absorb the dreamer again and head back out of the building. After exiting the building, you go up and to the east until you see the stack station. You pay for it and head back to Dirtmouth. We absorbed all 3 dreamers and now it is time for the final boss. You go down the well to Crossroads again and head east until you see this building and enter it. Now you're in the Temple of the Black Egg. You break the seal through the power of the dreamers and enter it. Here's the final boss, the Hollow Knight. You destroy the shackles and now you gotta fight an epic boss with epic music. In the beginning this boss fight is no joke, but after learning his attacks it gets easier. It still took me about 35 minutes because I died relatively often, but it took me less time than Umu, so there's that. And with that I completed the game in 4 hours and 41 minutes of in-game time. Was it good? No, but this was not the purpose of the first day. It was more important for me to take my time and really hammer in the route to be prepared for the upcoming days. And with that, day 1 ended after a bit over 6 hours of streaming and I went to bed and slept. Day 2 started with a recollection of the previous day and the speedrunning route. I opened up a document and wrote down every major point in the run. Which upgrade do I have to get? When do I have to pay for the stack stations? And when do I have to use it? When do I have to get to the dreamers? Which I wrote down as spirits, sorry maybe. and so on. During this part I was not allowed to look anything up. If I made mistakes during the recollection process, so be it. It's not a huge deal. It was important for me to see how much I can remember from the previous day. If I would look every tiny detail up, I wouldn't learn from memory. As soon as I was confident enough with my list, I looked everything up again and asked Twitch chat if I forgot anything, and there were 3 very important things. First of all, I didn't remember talking to Lem in order to sell my stuff. I need the extra money to buy the lantern from Sly in Dirtmouth. Second, on the way to Lem, I need to collect an item for some extra money. And third, while going to Crystal Peak was the correct path, the way how I get there was wrong. Instead of going the long way from the minibug arena, I just need to fast travel to Crossroads again. But other than that, I remembered a ton of stuff already. This whole process took me about 20 minutes, but it was definitely worth it. After that, I booted up Hollow Knight and immediately started with a test run. The test run showed how much I really remembered from the previous day and where my weaknesses lie. I also told everybody in the stream that I do not want any help whatsoever. If I make mistakes, I make them and should learn where I have to go. The first objective was the Vengeful Spirit. In this run, I tested out some speedrunning tricks like the inventory drop and where I can exactly perform it. The inventory drop basically lets you fall faster, which I used in Crossroad on my way to the Vengeful Spirit spell. However, while walking to the spell, I made a small mistake and chose the wrong path. But this was basically the only mistake I've made. After obtaining it, I benched really quickly and made my way to Hornet. I also made a mistake in this area here and forgot if I had to go up or down. Also, just before the entrance to the Hornet fight, I questioned myself if I was on the right path and I made a small detour. The Hornet fight went well and I got the Mothwing Cloak. Because I remembered to not use a different bench, I could save and quit back to the Shaman bench. Now I had to go to Mantis Village over Fungal Wastes. My pathing was very wonky and I lost my way a few times here and there again. But overall, I managed to remind myself where I had to go, enter the Mantis Village and collect the Mantis Claw. It was time to get the Dream Nail and on my way I paid for the stack station. Lost my way again to Gru's mother, did all the necessary NPC steps here and performed the Shade Skip. After that I went to the City of Tears and totally forgot to pick up the Dream Nail. Am I correct? I don't have the Dream Nail now. Wait, where do I get the Dream Nail again? Is it before or after Shade Skip? This was a huge mistake, but I knew that something fell off and I went back to collect it. It wasted some time for sure, but at least I remembered that I skipped the Dream Nail. I collected all the necessary items in the city, killed the Golden Husk and made my way to the Watcher Knight, who I defeated on my 4th try. Definitely better than last time. I absorbed Lurien, collected more items and money, got lost a bit, sold everything to Lamb, lost my way to the stack station and upon finally arriving there, I made my way back to Dirtmouth. I bought the lantern from Sly, benched really quickly and instead of going back to the stack station, I've made a huge detour in Crossroads. The building was right there, but we love wasting time. I traveled to Crossroads and made my way to Crystal Peak, where I actually walked through pretty well. No mistakes were made and I collected Crystal Heart. I did another save and quit, got back to Dirtmouth and went straight to the spot where I had to perform the acid skip. On my way to Umu, instead of going all the way down in this room, I accidentally took one exit earlier, but this was the only major mistake. The Umu fight itself was very long, but it only took me one try, which was a huge improvement. After that I absorbed Monomon and got out of the building. On my way to Deep Nest, I lost my way again, but as soon as I arrived in Queen Station, everything was alright. And now comes the absolute weirdest part in the entire test run. Deep Nest is an area that can get kinda confusing with many different ways and everything being so dark. And I didn't lose directions a single time. I'm honestly surprised I made it. I don't know how I did it, but here we are. I entered the dream realm of our last dreamer Hera, made my way out of the building, paid for the stack station and went straight to the final boss. And it was a complete disaster. Don't get me wrong, I managed to fight through it way better than last time. But for some reason this son of a bug decided to spam his counter several times in a row and it made me so incredibly angry. Bro! Bro! Shut the f— What do you mean he did it 4 times in a row, attacked 1 time and then did 3 counters in a row? This fucking bitch! It took me 4 attempts until I finally defeated the Hollow Knight and my in-game time was 1 hour and 43 minutes. 3 hours better than the previous day and not too bad for a test run. There were many mistakes in this run, but that was the goal. Figuring out what my problem areas are and improving upon them. Now that I've completed a test run, it was time to add more strats to my arsenal and clean up the gameplay. For this, I searched up a run on the leaderboards, which used my items and upgrades. I didn't analyze the world record run by Sea Viper, because the strat doesn't include Vengeful Spirit and instead uses the charm Fury of the Fallen, which increases your nail damage when you're on only 1 HP. However, for me as a beginner runner, I would just run the risk of dying over and over again and not only turn this into a speedrun, but also a hitless challenge at the same time. So this was not an option. Furthermore, it would completely change the way I would run this category. In the beginning, I wouldn't recommend these hard strats. That is something you can change way later when you are more comfortable speedrunning the game. So I searched for a run until I found one on the leaderboards by Strat Sus, who used Vengeful Spirit instead. I opened up the video, grabbed some snacks, a drink, and then Twitch chat and I were watching the video together from beginning until the very end. Now that I was more familiar with my speedrun path, I could immediately spot if there are strats in the video I could implement myself. Maybe some slight adjustments in movement or some skips that are not too hard. During this process, we found a few things. When these rolling bugs attack me, I can just attack upwards to make them jump above me and avoid them. After getting Vengeful Spirit, I can use a camera trick to kill this big guy. A fireball skip in green path, a more optimized way in fungal waste to navigate through the big acid part, a trick called E-Pogo to get the Mantis Claw way earlier, optimizing the Umu fight I had so much trouble with, and the Queen's Garden acid skip. There were two things I did not implement, which were the fireball skip and the Queen's Garden acid skip, for good reasons. The fireball skip was basically a little time save compared to the strat I used with the bug. I tried it out a few times but didn't get it once in the beginning. Because I only had 3 days to learn the speedrun, I've decided to ignore the trick for now. The second trick I didn't implement was the Queen's Garden acid skip. I didn't even try it out. It was not just a tiny skip that I could train over and over again like E-Pogo, but a whole different path, and I believed that it would mess me up and I would spend too much time practicing this. After all, I had not much time left to practice before day 3, so I stick to my own path for now. This would have been something I should have implemented from the very beginning instead. Now it's unfortunately too late. Other than that, I practiced the E-Pogo for a good amount of time. The way you do the E-Pogo is by manipulating the specific spork to fire an explosive at you. You dash downwards until you reach this mushroom and the spork will shoot automatically at you. Then when the projectile hits about this spot, you jump and attack the projectile. And as soon as it is exploding, you hit the explosion hitbox. This way you bounce up just enough to enter this area with a dash, from which you can enter the Mantis village earlier than usual. The trick is a little bit finicky at the beginning, but the good part is that you can reset it pretty quickly. So it was a trick that I was able to practice multiple times in a row. Among other optimizations, I was fighting Umu over and over and over again. I wanted to beat this boss consistently and fast. For this, I looked up some videos how other players 2-cycle Umu, and I noticed that they hugged the right wall in the beginning to manipulate Umu's path. If you manipulate it correctly, you can get Umu to the bottom middle platform, and from there, you get a lot of hits in. I never managed to 2-cycle Umu, but I got one time a 3-cycle, which was good enough for me. It was not about making the fight incredibly fast. I just wanted a decent fight, but also not dying over and over again. I practiced the Umu fight for so long that I didn't have time for anything else, but honestly, this didn't matter too much at this point, because everything else was decent enough for the little time I gave myself. So I headed to bed again and called it a day. The final day arrived and it was time to get some real runs going. But before that, I had to set up my life split. To do this, I looked up some splits on the speedrun.com website of Hollow Knight and clicked on the tab Resources. The Hollow Knight community has a split maker specifically for life split, and it is easy to use as well. You can customize the splits to your liking. The splits I used were Vengeful Spirit, Mothwing Cloak, Mantis Claw, Dream Nail, Watcher Knight Exit, Crystal Heart, Umu, Hera, and Hollow Knight. I only use the major progress points like key items, upgrades, boss fights and dreamers, but you can use way more splits if you want to. I've seen people using a gajillion splits, which is honestly not bad at all, because you can pinpoint your trouble areas more, but for this challenge, the few splits I've selected were enough for me and it makes it easier to understand, not only for me, but also for you. I also watched Firebond's life split setup. He goes over the specifics of setting up the layout, the correct way to count the time, and how you can automatically split in Hollow Knight. The automatic split is very important because it removes the loading times in game, which will be used as the measurement of the speedrun. If you ever want to run the game yourself, feel free to check out Firebond's YouTube channel. He also has a ton of other awesome challenges and videos. Then I made one quick live split test until I got to Vengeful Spirit and see if everything works. I reset the splits in live split and then I was finally ready to go live and run Hollow Knight any %, no major glitches, for the first time ever. The run started off with an inventory drop where I made my way straight to Dirtmouth. In Crossroads, I fought the False Knight and collected the Vengeful Spirit after 4 minutes and 8 seconds. The next stop was the Mothwing Cloak, so I went to Green Path, manipulated the bug to skip a huge portion and got to Hornet. I started the battle on 2 health and lost. Oh, what the f? Because I needed to save and quit, the last bench was at the Snail Shaman, so I had to make my way back to Hornet to fight her again, which I won this time. Funnily enough, compared to the test run on day 2 where I immediately won, I didn't lose any time because my pathing was way better on day 3. After the save and quit, I headed straight to the Mantis Village over Fungal Wastes where I implemented more inventory drops to get faster to the bottom. Then I performed the E-Poker and after only 2 tries, I already got it. I entered the Mantis Village and while trying to obtain the Mantis Claw, I died again. There was the second death, which wasted a ton of time. I went all the way back to Mantis Village, collected my Shade and obtained the Mantis Claw. Now it was time for the next skip, the Shade skip. However, I got a bit lost and wasted some more time, and the Shade skip was also not clean at all on day 3. It took me 5 tries until I finally got it. Another huge time waste, but it was my first real run after all. It couldn't be perfect. After acquiring the Dream Nail, I went over to the City of Tears and this place went surprisingly well. My pathing was good, I got some quick kills, I defeated the Watcher Knight on my first try and absorbed the first Dreamer. It was honestly pretty clean. My only real mistake was the little rock skip here, which took me 2 tries. Other than that, a very clean city. Next up was Crystal Peaks, and all I can say was that it was indeed peak. I didn't make a single mistake here. Yeah, sure, my overall movement could be better, but I remembered the route, I didn't die, I saw more opportunities to use the inventory drop and it was overall pretty clean. I obtained Crystal Heart and reloaded the game in Dirtmouth. On my way to performing the acid skip, I tried to inventory drop in this area and I got completely messed up by the bugs. I got hit several times and was only on 2 health left. Then I took the wrong turn and died instantly from an explosion. It was a huge time waste. Another unfortunate mistake, but after that I immediately went to the correct path, performed the acid skip and fought Umu. I used the strategy other players used to defeat Umu faster and it worked quite well for me. It was not the 2 cycle and it still took me 5 cycles overall, but at least I didn't die. I absorbed the next Dreamer and headed to Deep Nest. Before arriving in Deep Nest, I lost my way again, right before Queen Station and lost a bit more time. But as soon as I arrived in Deep Nest, I had no issue whatsoever getting to the last Dreamer and absorbing them. Okay, how can I navigate through that? However, on my way out of the building, I lost my way completely and died in the process as well. This was a huge issue, because I needed to find my Shade and make my way out. Upon dying, you lose all your Geos, and you need to defeat your Shade to regain all your lost Geos. This was important because I needed to unlock the Stack Station in Deep Nest. This whole process cost me about 4 to 5 minutes, but I got my Shade back and was able to make it out to the station and head straight to the final boss. Now it was important to not die during this fight. I had to log in one final time in this run. This fight was honestly amazing. I got a lot of good hits in, he didn't counter so often, and RNG was on my side during this fight. The first 2 phases went incredibly well and I knew as long as I get to the 3rd phase, I can play it safe and heal myself as soon as the Hollow Knight stabs himself. I got to the 3rd phase, played as good as I possibly can, entered the 4th phase and from there on out everything was GG. After 4 minutes of fighting the Hollow Knight, I defeated him and completed the run with a time of 1 hour, 10 minutes and 56 seconds. This was my first real speedrun and it was not too bad, but I knew that I made a lot of mistakes. I died against Hornet, I died in the Mantis Village, I died in Deep Nest and I lost my way several times. I knew I can do better. I was over 10 minutes ahead compared to my previous run, and sub 1 hour was in sight. All I had to do was defeat the Hollow Knight and not die. All I had to do was defeat the Hollow Knight and not die again. I got through the first phase while only getting hit once. I got through the second phase with enough health as well. Then there was the third phase, and every time I had the opportunity, I played it safe and healed back up. And after a little while, I got my final hit in and defeated the Hollow Knight. My second run ever ended with 58 minutes and 16 seconds, and the in-game time was 1 hour and 3 minutes. I finally got sub 1 hour, and then only after 3 days of speedrunning Hollow Knight any percent. But I was still not happy. I died one time in the Hollow Knight fight, and I died one time to Umu. My shade skip was not the best, which took me multiple attempts. I totally forgot to bench before going to Crystal Peak and ended up in City of Tears again, wasting more time, and I thought my movement was not clean enough as well. So I started more runs. The third run started out very well. I got another gold split on Vengeful Spirit, and then... Okay, we're gonna reset that. On the fourth run, I saved 1 minute and 20 seconds already after obtaining the Mantis Claw, and then I went straight to performing the shade skip, but failed way too many times in a row. I honestly had a good pace, but I knew this was another reset. So I did what everybody would do in this case. I practiced the shade skip until I was comfortable enough to perform it and gave it a shot again. It was time for the fifth run. With over 4 minutes ahead of my previous time, a ton of gold splits and a huge time save by not dying to the Hollow Knight, I knew this was the final run, not only because it seemed like a good pace, but also because we were nearing our end of the 3-day challenge. This was the last time I had to log in. I had to make it worth. I got through the first phase relatively quickly, but the second phase was absolutely spooky. I was on only 2 health multiple times and had to play it very safe. I wanted at least 3 health if possible to feel more comfortable. The second phase finished and I healed myself back up to prepare for the third phase. I never died in the third phase and I also didn't want to end the streak, so I logged in, and after 3.5 minutes of fighting this boss, I finally defeated him and ended my time with 51 minutes and 56 seconds and an in-game time of 57 minutes and 6 seconds. Not only did I get sub 1 hour on my clock, but also in-game. I was really happy with this time. The run was not perfect by any means. In fact, I actually died one time to Umu in this run, so a sub 50 was definitely possible, but I had not much time left for the 3-day challenge. So I decided to end on a high note and call it quits. And my final time for this challenge clocked in at 51 minutes and 56 seconds after only 3 days of practicing Hollow Knight, any percent, no major glitches. This was a very fun challenge and I'm very happy about my time for only 3 days of practicing the any percent category. This time was way better than I anticipated. I honestly thought my time is gonna be about 1 hour and 10 minutes before starting this challenge, but I'm glad I was wrong. Hollow Knight is an amazing game to speedrun with a ton of awesome tricks. If you want to give it a try, I recommend checking out the videos of Fireborn and Masker. If that's too intimidating because the speedrun is already so advanced, I recommend giving its sequel Silksong a shot. It just released and the speedrun is currently in its early stages. Everybody has the same shot at getting that world record. I don't know if I'm gonna speedrun it or what my next project is gonna be, so stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this 3-day challenge and maybe it sparked the speedrunning spirit in you as well. And if you want to see more of these videos, feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe and hype the video up. Because apparently that's a new feature on YouTube now? Thank you so much and I'll see you all next time. Have a good one, bye bye.